Hi everyone. So yesterday we have seen how to handle exception when there is an exception in application, right? So let me give summary of yesterday's class. Let me start the application. Application started successfully. So now I can go to the browser and local host colon 8080 slash find what is the API find employee slash one. So for the time being, nothing, no employees are there, right? So one is not there. So whenever you start the server, so DB2 in-memory database will not have any data, right? So the employee table will not have any data. So that's the reason it is giving employee not found. So for not found, or not found in the sense not found, the requested resource not found. So if you try from the browser, the get API which you have tried from the browser, it is returning, Spring Boot is returning with JSP error page, right? JSP error page saying that not found, for not for in the sense not found. Let me try from the postman. So I'm trying to search employee 2. Let me send the request. So I got the response from the server. What it is, what kind of structure it is? It is a JSON response. The moment you send a request from the REST API, so you are getting JSON response. Spring Boot is capable of returning JSON response. And if you try from the browser, it is Spring Boot is returning JSP with error code saying that not found, employee 1 is not found. So this is the structure currently Spring Boot is returning. So in generally in real time, what will happen? So consumer want his own data in his own format. So this format is by default sent from Spring Boot application. So how we can customize this? So if we want to customize this error response, so user have developer has to create his own custom handler, custom request error handler. We have to write. So some of the people, consumers or client or anywhere, based on their requirement, whenever there is an exception in their server, they will follow their own standards. So they will follow their own structure of response. They will follow. So this response is sending from the server by default. Spring Boot is giving this is the format. So timestamp and status 404 and error. It is saying that not found. So how we can customize this? Our custom user end user. So our customized error response we can create it based on our requirement. We can create our custom response from the server. If whenever there is an application error, then we can return, we can write the code to handle this custom response. Okay, so how we can do that? Let me go to in Eclipse. So now, so how we have done in a GDBC class, repository class, we have written try catch block and we are handling the exception. And whenever there is a no user found in H2 database, then it will throw JDBC, Spring JDBC will throw an exception saying that empty result data access exception. So here we are throwing our custom exception class, right? So employee not found exception. How we can create custom user defined exception class? By extending runtime exception. Okay, so now we are going to handle now the response, the server which is sending the response, right? JSON format, specific JSON response server sent from some of the server. So here we are going to customize our own response. Okay, we are going to customize our own response structure. So how we can do that? So let me see now. So for that we need to create our customized handlers. So in Spring Boot, we can Spring Boot or traditional Spring, anywhere in traditional Spring or Spring Boot, you can create your own customized response. You can return it. So how we can do that? So let me go and create it. So how we can create? So let me go to our project. So resources, where we can create the classes inside the root folder of project, right? So right click on the root folder of the project and click on that new and create package called sorry, I already created exception package, right? You can see I already created exception package. So better create here itself. So go to the right click on that package and create the class saying that. So what is that? So application. So for example, this is our Spring Boot JDBC, right? So we can create, for example, this project is belongs to employee, right? This project is belongs to employee. Since it is employee, then I am going to create custom class name as employee. Employee. I can give employee error handler or exception handler. So I am going to create the class employee exception handler. Since this module or this project belongs to employee details, so I am giving name it as a employee exception handler. Generally, whenever the project name which we are created, right, based on the project name, uh, your exception classes will be created in generally in software industry overall real-time projects, right? The project name belongs to any domain, that specific domain related name they will give. Okay, so for example, here we are creating employee, right? So that's the reason I'm going to create employee exception handler. So this handler, now let me click on finish button. So instead of that, so we can extend also for if you want to create any exception handler. So Spring Boot will create. So who is for example, whenever we are sending the request, right, this JSP is returns here, and when you send the request from the postman, so Spring Boot is returning some error response, right? So all those things, who is going to send? There is a class called response entity. There is a class called response, respo, response entity. You can see response entity exception handler. So where it is available? It will be available in servlet MVC method annotations. So arg.spring framework dot web servlet dot MVC method dot annotation package contains response exception handler. Response Spring web module is having this class response entity exception handler. So let me click on finish button. You can see the class extends. Our employee exception handler is extends response entity exception handler. This is the class is returning all the exception which is available, which is happening in our application by default. So Spring Boot is throwing these are all the exceptions by default in REST API. You can see different kinds of set of methods are there. If you press Control O, handle exception, you can see different kinds of handle exception, handle HTTP request method not supported, handle media type not supported, handle HTTP media type not acceptable, handle missing path variable, handle missing servlet request, handle missing servlet request part. So like this, different kinds of exceptions are by default Spring Web Module is providing us, right? So now what we are doing, so we are going to customize this, we are going to override this method in our custom exception handler. So for that, so we need to override this method. So for example, you can see what is that default generic exception method. Here you can see the very first method. How you can see? Just Control O, open this class. How you can open this class? Just click on this response entity handler. You can make it note, guys. Whenever you are watching this video or now itself, if you take one book behind you and make it note. So how we are going to create our custom exception handler by extending response entity exception handler, by extending response entity exception handler. So you can see description here. Okay, so now let me go inside that. So Control O, and different set of methods are available. Just I'm taking generic exception method. You can see here generic exception method. So you can see here. So this one we can override. Here you have a lot of exceptions based on our exception type. Spring Boot is returning respective. This class is returning respective error. So now we are going to throw our custom user defined exception now. So now go there, employee exception handler. We are going to override that method. Very easy, guys. So how we are going to override? Just by declaring this method, and this method name we have to change it actually. So here because if you see inside that method, what is this class? Abstract class. This exception handler class is abstract class. And if you go and check handle exception, so this is not this is this method is available in response entity handler. So this one we are overriding it. So now what we can do, go to here. So whenever you are overriding it, just you change this method name as exception handle our custom exceptions, app exceptions, something like that. So now, or as of now, let it as is. So how we can give? So how we are going to handle? There is a annotation called. So we have to declare our own exception. So our own customized exception we are going to throw, right? So that time there is a annotation called exception at the rate exception handler. So as part of exception handler, we have to pass exception dot class object. Exception dot class object. That's it. So whenever any exception happening in our application, so Spring Boot will throw whatever message we are declaring inside this method. This exception class is going to return that respective message. So now our customized error message we have to throw, right? Our customized error message we have to throw. Now what we can do, so generally let me return the error message. Return what this method is expecting. Return type response entity of object. Response entity of object. Return new response p1 is response entity of object of. Let me create what kind of object. Let me try exception. Let me try exception only as of now. So what here we need to pass ex comma. So there is a http status. Respect http status message we need to we need to define here internal server error. There is a method called internal server error. This method is returning error. Why? Because it is saying cannot override final method from response entity handler. It is clearly saying this method is final. Actually by default this method is in handle exception. You can see in handle exception it is a final. So you learn the core Java concepts, right? Whenever a method declare it as a final, whenever a method declare it as a final, you cannot override into subclass. So I am extending this class. So response exception handler is extends response entity exception handler, but I'm trying to override that. So what it is saying, so since it is a final method, so cannot override final method. So some people will ask interview, can you override a final method in your class, child class? So you have to say we cannot override final methods in our child classes. Okay, you cannot override. So what you can do now, you just need to, you can make use of future of you can make use all the features which are available in this class, but you cannot override the exception. So you cannot override these methods, final methods. So now handle employee exceptions. I will write handle employee exception. Just save it. Just import organize imports. So what you can, why it is again still the mismatch, cannot convert from response entity to response entity of object. Oh, okay, so this is not so what you can do, string it will not allow. So what we can do, we'll do one thing, we'll create our custom exception class, or we'll remove from here. Let me try, just remove. So if you remove, so now your exception handler is ready now. So now this is our custom method which we have written. So whenever any exception happen here, so what will happen? So it is going, so still some error is there. What is that error? Let's see. Multiple mortgage responsibility is a raw type. Reference to generic type. Responsibility should be parameterized type safety. Okay, anyway, that we can ignore, not a problem as of now. So let me remove this exception. So this warning is expecting some type need to define. So as of now, I don't want to return that employee class. So now whenever some exception happen, it will throw our exception. If you want to check right whether it is really calling or not, what you can do? So let me go to your browser and let me stop the server. So let me stop the server. So I have done changes, right? So we have removed the dependency here. We have removed dependency. Removed in the sense I have commented out, right? Spring Dev tools. So that's the reason whenever any changes are happened, so we need to restart the server. So let me restart the server. So how we can restart? By it is, so now go there, run Spring Boot JDBC application. So now, so for testing purpose, what I will do, I will just go there and then I will try to search employee user number 2. You can see it is throwing 404. Why it is throwing 404? Let me go on. It is not that class is not being called. Still, it is throwing not found. So now what we can do? Go to your employee that handler class, employee exception handler. Why? Because so Spring doesn't know how Spring knows. So this is our customized exception class. Spring or Spring Boot, it does should know whether we have declared our customized class or not. How it will be know? So we have to declare it as a controller advice. There is a annotation. There is a annotation saying that this class is going to be customized exception handler. So user is going to, this class is going to tell to Spring Boot container, use this handler class to display error messages. Use this handler class to display error messages. So how we can tell Spring Boot to use our class? By defining at the rates controller advice. What we can declare? We can declare at the rate controller advice. That's it. So let me stop the server. So what does it mean? So you can see here specialization of the class to declare exception handler and model attributes across multiple controllers. Across multiple controllers in the sense any controller. For example, in your application, if you have number of controllers, for example, in a real-time application, you may have a lot of controllers. Different modules will be there, right, in the respective project. So all the controllers, any exception happens in all the controllers or services. So any exception happen in your application. So this handler is going to execute to display specific exception. So what we need to declare at the rate controller advice saying that we are telling Spring Boot to use our customized exception handler to display the error messages. Okay, so you can see classes annotated with controller advice can be declared explicitly as Spring Bean or auto detect via class path. Okay, it will detect automatically for scanning all, by scanning all the controllers. All such bean are stored based on semantic order priority. Okay, so you can go and through, you can go through the respective content. Okay, so you have to mainly remember so how you can create your customized exception handler in Spring or Spring Boot by extending response exception handler. After that you have to you can use the future of all the exceptions. Okay, you can use the future of all the features which are available in exception handler by overriding the method. And we cannot override exact method because it is a final method. So we need to modify the method name and then we can declare it as a exception handler. The moment you declare at exception handler, so Spring container knows. So if any class defined with controller advice, Spring Boot container knows or Spring container knows this is the exception handler is going to execute to show error messages or exceptions. Okay, guys. So you have to understand this one. That is enough. Okay. So now let me start the server now. Very simple. You just need to remember by extending the response and exception handler, you can create your customized exception handler, and by specifying at the rate controller advice. Specifying controller advice. Okay. So now uh, we can test this. How we can test it? And I just start the server. Go to your go to your postman or somewhere. So just send the request. You can see it is returning lot of response. You can see how many exceptions it is showing. 500. You can see exceptions, class loader, class name. See now earlier what it is returning. It is returning not found on something like that. You can see 500 internal server error. Now whenever I am trying to search the employee number 2 who is not available in database. Let me go and show you. This employee is not available in database. Where we can check? We are using H2 in memory database, right? Localhost colon 8080 slash, what is the URL? H2 hyphen console. So let me log in admin connected. So go to employee table and click on run button. There is no records available in employee table. Now what I am doing, I am trying to search employee 2 here. So if you see in the database, there is no records available in your employee table. So now when I'm sending the request, now it is throwing 500 internal server exception. Sir, you make ask question, sir, how do you know whether this is coming from our customized exception handler? So how do you know? So let me testing purpose, what I will do, system dot, as of now system dot, you can debug also, guys. System dot, I can put breakpoint here, it will go directly. So instead of that, I will show you another way to debug it. How we can debug? System dot out dot println, and I just want to display some message and exception coming from my customized handler. Okay, just save it. I just saved it. So let me stop the server and start the server. So now I just started the server. So now just you can just clear the logs. As of now, clear the logs. How you can clear? By clicking, there is a button, clear console. You can see there is a clear console. Just click on that. You can clear the logs. Now go to postman and send the request. So server is returning 500 internal server error. If you see the console, which handler class is being executed, our customized exception handler is being executed. You can see here exception coming from my customized handler. You can say that now, confirm. So this exception, whatever response coming from where this response is coming, your customized exception handler is throwing this exception by extending response entity handler. So this is the message to prove your customer exception handler is being executed whenever exception comes. So what is the response code? It is written 500. So 500 internal server error, right? 500 internal server. So earlier we have written employee not found. So what we are throwing in employee JDBC repository. So we are throwing employee not found, but what is this? It is throwing 500 internal server error. So how we can throw that employee not found exception? So it is this 500 internal server is generic exception, which is thrown by our customized response handler, right? So now what we can do? exception handler. Just go there. If you want to throw your user defined exception, this is generic exception method. So whenever any exception comes, it will always throws it will always throws 500 internal error message. It will always throw 500 internal server error, 500 internal server error. And one more thing, so there is a lot of unused JSON response is being sent. So I don't want to see these many unused response. So how we can customize this? Let's customize now. How to customize the server response? So currently my custom response handler is returning this much response. So I don't want to see. So why this is returning? Because here I am returning actual exception which is throwing. So that's the reason it is showing number of lot of JSON response, lot of code. You can see lot of JSON. This JSON is response is having lot of app and nothing. So I cannot understand anything. So what I can do? So let me customize our exception response, which is done by our exception handler. So what we can do? Let me create our own class to display custom JSON response. Okay, so right click on exception class, create, go to new, and then click on class. So I will create like employer application info, just generic application info, error info, application error info. So application error info, just click on finish button. So application error info is created. So now what I will do, I will create my own property. So what is the response earlier? If you see what is the response before that. So let me remove that annotation. So let me remove that annotation. By default, uh, Spring Boot is returning some response, right? So for the time being, I'm just commenting out to check what kind of response Spring Boot is returning. Okay, so let me start the server again. Server started successfully. I'm sending the request. You can see this is the default format. What is this format? It has timestamp and status and error not found and path. So now we are going to customize this exception response message. Okay, so how we can customize? So let me enable this and then stop the server. Let me create my own custom error class, application error info. So what I will do, private as per standard, each error message depends on the company, rights guys, depends on the company or depends on the consumer or client who is using our APIs. He will, so they are having their specific standard response format. Okay, standard error response format. Based on their requirement, we have to create error response. Okay, based on our project response, based on consumer or client requirement, we have to create their own custom response error message. Okay, so for the time being sample I'm creating. Okay, so you don't think like always we have to create in same way. No, you should understand the concept, and based on their requirement, you have to create their own customized format. Okay, so for the time being, I'm going to create our own customized format. That's saying that let me create timestamp. So local date timestamps. Okay, local date timestamp on property I'm going to take, and then create private string message in the sense string message, error message. So this is wrong actually. Private. Okay, syntactical error. Private. Sorry. Private. Okay, private string message. So this will display respective error message which is throwing by the respective method. So let me write another property by saying description of the message. Description of the error message. Description. CRIPTION. Okay. description, description. Okay, description. So local, we are going to display local time, time of the exception, time of the exception, and specific error message, and this is description of entire exception. So now what I will do now, so let me create the constructor using these two three fields. So go to source and generate constructor using fields, select all, then click on generate button. So customer is available. So now let me, so how you can get the messages, if you want to get the messages which are available, if you want to get the messages, so we need only getter methods, we need only getter methods, right? So I am going to generate getter methods. So source generate get only getter methods to get the messages. Okay, so that's it, we do not need the setter methods. If you need required, you can create it. So as of now, I am not going to use setter methods, so that's the reason I have not created setter methods. Okay, so now only getter methods I am going to create, and I have created one simple constructor, and which is having three properties, three properties. One is date time, instead of date time or something time, okay, local date time. So exception of the message, and message of respective error message, and this is error message description. So where we can use this, go to your exception handler class, let me create. So what is the class we have created? Employee or application, something application, application error info. Okay, application error info is equal to new application error info. So what are all the arguments we need to pass? So we need to pass, so first, what is the first argument? Time, right? You can go and check what is the first argument, local date and time. Second argument, error message, and message error message description. So let me go and pass. So here local date, so local time, how we can pass local time? There is a local date time dot now, that's it, local date time dot now. It will display current time of error message. So here there is a exception object, right? Exception object ex. So ex dot get message from the exception which is thrown by method. Okay, so now next, what is the third one? Descriptions. From where we can get the description? There is a web request objects, request dot, there is a method called description false, you can pass as a false, that's it. So we have created our custom application error message, error info. Now we need to pass as part of response entity, as part of handle exception, employee exception method is returning response entity object. So we need to pass as part of response entity argument. So earlier, which one we are passing? Earlier we are passing exception. Directly we are passing exception. So which is returning lot of junk response, right? So instead of that, now I am going to pass my user defined object. My user defined object here. So that's it. So internal server save this class. Now I can pass my custom exception class. Now type is a custom exception class. Just save and control shift to O. So why it is throwing exception still cannot convert from, yeah. So this employee error info, you just need to pass it here. That's it. Control shift F, control A, control shift F, and save. Okay. So now our customized exception format we are going to return. Now let's see what it will throw now. So let me stop the server is already stopped, right? So let me start the server. We are going to show the response based on our requirement. We are going to send response back to our REST client. So let me send the request. So this user is not available in database. If you see now, you can see local date time, our own response, our own customized error JSON response we are able to see now. So see here now, local date time, and what is the message ID2. So this two, whatever API we are going to send, this ID2 equal to description is, so because of this API, because of this API exception is throwing. Okay, so now let me send one more time. So, okay, got it right. From where this ID equal to is coming, you can see. Let me go to employee JDBC repository. Here I'm passing right employee not found. So still this is going to execute, and it is taking this message, whatever message I am passing as part of employee not found exception. ID is called specific user ID. This is the ID we are able to display now. ID2 is not available. Let me show generic message. Let me show generic message. What does it message? Employee not found, right? So let me write employee ID plus, you can just need to customize employee ID plus whatever ID is coming from here, employee ID number 3 not found. That's it. Now I just customize it now. So let me stop the server now. Let me start the server. Now you will have some meaningful error exception name, so consumer can understand easily. Consumer can understand easily. Let me send the request. You can see employee ID2 not found. Now any end user who is not having any end user or consumer who is consuming this web service, so he can easily understand what is the problem of exception. What is this? Employee ID 2 not found. So let me give some space. Let me give some space. Employee ID not found in database or their system. Anything. Employee not found in database or system. Anything you can give. So based on their requirement, you have to specify respective error message. Very, very easy, guys. You have to understand the concept. That's it. Based on the requirement, you can uh, display your own exception handler class. See now, it is clearly saying employee 2 not found in database. Let me try employee number 1. So I'm sending the request. So what it is saying, employee number 1 not found in database. By executing this URI, find employee /1 URI is throwing exception, that is employee ID 1 not found in database. So let me check. Let me create the employee. Let me create one employee. Okay, so how you can create the employee? Let me open the controller, control shift R. If you want to open the class, what you have to do, control shift R, and type employee controller, employee rest controller, right? So just type, you can see. So how we can create the employee? By invoking this API, create employee. So let me create employee. Okay, so create employee. What is the HTTP method? Post method. So we need to pass the body, right? So select the raw type, and let me send Sachin Tendulkar. Okay, let me create Sachin Tendulkar. Yeah, Sachin Tendulkar is created. You can see it is returning one, in the sense employee is created successfully. You can customize this error response also, guys. So based on your requirement, you can customize employee created or something like that. You can show. So now let me create one more employee to Sachin Tendulkar or Rohit Sharma. Rohit Sharma is my favorite player, guys. So Rohit Sharma, and let me create Rohit. Okay, so let me send the request. So two employees are available in database now. Let me go and check whether data is saved or not. How we can check? Just open and log in, and click on that employee class and click a run button. You can see two records are available. So now what I will do, now I will find the employee, those employees I can find now. So let me call that API find employees. What is the HTTP request method? Get request. So which employee I'm going to send? One. So let me search. So server is responding employee one. Let me try employee two, send the request. So employee two also returning successfully. Let me try employee three. So what is happening now? You can see employee ID 3 not found in database. Employee 3 is not found in the database. Now some people may have doubt. Sir, it is returning internal server error 500. So what about so whenever employee not found, what is the error code it should return? It should return 404, right? 404. So this is generic exception. So we actually what it should return 404. So the exception handler class which we have written currently, it will give generic exception. What is that generic exception? Internal server error. What is that generic exception? Internal server error. So any exception comes, it will always return 500. It will always, any exception which is happening in the application, that handler always return 500 internal error and respective message. So instead of 500 internal error, so let me throw what is a customized user response. So employee not found. Employee not found in the sense, let me go to JDBC repository, see employee not found. Employee not found in the sense, it should return not found. Not found in the sense 404. You can see not found in the sense 404 should return. How we can do that? So now let me go to employee exception handler. Let me copy same message. Okay, let me copy the method, just to paste it here, and then just change your method name as a employee employee not found. This method name can be any, guys, you can give any name. So as of now I'm going to through employee exception name. That's the reason I'm giving it as employee not found. Employee not found, exception. Okay. So now what we have to return? So exception handler. So earlier generic exception we are handling here. If you see, earlier we are handling generic exception. Now instead of generic exception, what I will do here, the employee not found. You just need to pass employee not found exception. This is created by us only. Okay, this is created by us. Employee not found. See, employee not found. So remaining, let it as is. So here what you have to give, instead of internal error, what you have to return? Not found, not underscore, not found. That's it. What is the HTTP response? Not found and employee not found. So how it is going to call? So what we are throwing here, if you go to JDBC repository class, what we are throwing here, we are throwing employee not found exception. Whenever you are throwing employee not found exception, go to your handler. This method is going to execute employee not found exception. Our customized user exception class is going to return as a response. Okay, so let me send the request. So I just need to stop the server. Let me start the server. So now go to your browser, go to your postman, send the request 3. If you are able to see the guys, what it is returning 404 not found. So instead of returning generic message, now we are able to display 404 error message, which we are actually expecting to return this API error response. So now end user or consumer or client who are invoking this API, the person or the client, the consumer, the end user is going to use this API. Whenever they are going to use that API, so he can easily understand the error response for not found and employee ID 3 not found in database. because of by invoking this API, find employee API. Very, very easy, guys. So let me summarize that. Okay. So let me tell you again. You have to just concentrate on it. So how to, so earlier before, so let me remove this. Let me comment it out controller advice. So what will happen? Let me stop the server and let me start the server again. I'm just commented out controller advice. Now, who is going to throw the exception? Spring Boot will throw respect to exception from response entity exception handler. So now let me just send the request. You can see 404. See 404 not found. It is throwing not found. Who is throwing? So we are in our JDBC repository. We are throwing employee not found exception. So this is the exception is coming by because of response entity exception handler. So now this message we have customized it. We have customized it. So not found in the sense end user simply he can't understand. So what is not found? What is not found? He don't know what is not found and what is that error message 404. So now what we have done? We have created our own customized response. What we have done? Our own customized response. How we have done? By creating our own custom exception handler. How we can create? By creating the class which is extending response entity exception handler, and that class should extend so the class should specify with controller advice. What does it mean? Controller advice says spring container to use this custom exception handler to display error message for all the APIs which are available in controllers. Okay, that is the meaning of controller advice. Okay, so now we are overriding all the, we are making use of all the features which are available in response entity exception handler by overriding specifying the respective definition, and by specifying exception handler. So any generic exception it comes other than employee not found, any exception comes, this method is going to execute. If employee not found exception comes, this method is going to execute. Like this, you can add as many number of methods which you want to display error messages. Okay, this is very, very easy, guys. So let me stop the server and let me start the server again. So this is how you can handle custom user defined exception in Spring or Spring Boot. In Spring or Spring Boot employee ID not found in database. Okay. You guys have to practice every day, guys. Without practicing, you can't understand anything. I am teaching in very, very simple way. Each and every concept you can make it note in your notebook, and you can prepare for your interviews or for your development to improve your development skills. You have to make it note all those things. Okay. So will what we can do further? So far we have, now how to handle the exceptions, and how to write your custom user exceptions. Now you know how to create APIs, how to create a JDBC repository, and how to connect with database by using JDBC template. And you know how to create exception handler. You know how to create your customized exception class. Everything you know. So you just need to make it note in your book and make it practice by step what you are going to learn. With just simply watching video, it cannot helpful for you. Just watching videos cannot helpful for you. You have to make one notebook and make all the points which I am teaching, write it there, and going forward you can go through that notebook and you can prepare by yourself and you can practice by yourself. So whenever you are joining after 2 months, guys, after 2 months in the sense end of this course, whether and this course is going to end in how we can say in 45 days or 2 months. I'm trying to close as soon as possible, because most of the people are saying why, because see, everybody will do the business. Let me stop the recording, guys. I want to tell you one thing. Okay. So